Government is not reason. Government is not eloquence. Government is force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Well, thank you for tuning in. My name is still Daniel Hapney, and this is The Real Story. I've got some interesting news, just a couple pieces for you. I've got a lot. I want to call this one the bailout bubble. Do you remember all the bubbles? Remember the dot-com bubble? Were you part of that bubble? Okay. I was, you know. But anyway, do you remember the defense industry bubble? Yeah, remember the Reagan years and stuff? How about the housing bubble? You were there, right? You remember the housing bubble. And back in the savings and loan crisis, there was that commercial real estate bubble thing. Okay. But what are we moving into from one bubble to another? Because remember, one crisis to another thing. And the crooks keep leading us along, those district or criminal crooks, and also those wonderful banksters. So what I have for you tonight is what I'm calling the bailout bubble. Because I'm going to try to raise your awareness of, is this all pre-planned? Is this like, problem, reaction, solution? Do they know what they're doing? Are they stealing from your grandchildren? At what point will you stop them from taking from your children? Will you try to stop them at least from taking from your grandchildren? When you think about the debt they've created in 7 months, it's exceeded our GDP. So we're going to start off, we'll give you some news. And I thought it was very, very interesting news. Okay, so my first news, and this is big, and we're going to go into our 9/11 moment of Zen right afterwards, but I want you to learn and know about this. There's something coming up, and it's called the National Level Exercise for 2009. In your case, you can call it the NLE 09. Why it's important, let me tell you a little bit about it, okay? Well, the National Level Exercise 2009 is scheduled for July 27th through July 31st. Keep those dates in mind. And I'll tell you why in a second. But all right, so the NLE 09 will be the first major exercise conducted by the United States government that will focus exclusively on terrorism prevention. Doesn't that sound good? Okay, and protection as opposed to incident response and recovery. Yeah, they didn't do too good with Katrina, right? Is that an incident? Was that response? Anyway, the interesting things, and I've highlighted them, and I want you to understand this because this one's really interesting this year. And the fact that if you understand, do you remember when they were, 7/7 in London? It was rather interesting how they were doing a drill, okay, that involved the exact same 3 subway stations. In their case, they call them tube stations, and also the exact same bus. Did I say the exact same? Would you look that up? On 7/7 in London when they had the bombings. How is it that they could have been doing drills that day? Well, it's interesting because on 9/11, guess what? They were doing drills, military drills. But let me tell you about NLE 09. It's important for other reasons. And I'll ask you if you think they're important when I'm done reading it. So anyway, NLE 09 is a White House directed. You want to know where it was coming from and who's in charge? That's right, that dual citizen Rahm Emanuel and that new guy, Obama, the one everybody loves. All right, congressionally mandated and, exercise that includes the participation of all appropriate federal, department, and agency senior officials. The big guys are involved, their deputies, staff, and key operational elements. This is a big thing. Okay. In addition, broad regional participation of state, tribal. Okay, this is a really big exercise. We're getting the Indians in on this. Okay, local and private sector is anticipated. This year, the United States welcomes the participation, and this is why it's really important, of Australia, Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. So we have to do what? We have to practice this national level event thing with foreigners in our country. We can't even protect ourselves. We can't, the Department of Insecurity, Homeland Insecurity. I mean, think about it. Everything they do is because they're insecure. Hopefully, you're not insecure, are you? You shouldn't be. You should be secure on the person you are and stuff. But here's how we go. The fact that we're using foreign nations in our soil, their armies, their personnel, that I call into question. Are we so incapacitated that we can't care for ourselves? I understand that on the plane you put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can care for others. But now we're practicing, directed by our White House and stuff, What are we going to practice? Well, that's what's important. Let's find out. The exercise focus, for you anyway. NLE 09 will focus on intelligence. Haven't we just learned for the past, well, since that false flag event called 9/11, that they're spying on us? So anyway, what's on tap? Intelligence and information sharing among intelligence and law enforcement communities. Is this about a big global information power grab? Do you remember? Go back about 3 weeks. Didn't the guy who headed cybersecurity just resign? Why would he have resigned? What's going on in our government? What are the criminals doing lately? Okay, so anyway, law enforcement communities and between international, federal, regional, state, tribal once again, local and private sector participants. So we're involving foreign countries on our soil to do law enforcement, intelligence gathering, okay, and spying on American citizens, all under the guise of terrorism and preparedness. Couple things, just bullet point items, okay, just so you know. This is going to be like counterterrorism investigation and law enforcement. Why do I need Canadians in the United States doing that? Why do I need Mexicans? Maybe I forgot all about the John Warner Defense Authorization Act. Yeah, that authorized what? The United States President to use the Army of Mexico inside the United States. Now they're practicing it? People. I know I'm getting windy. I know it's really weird what I'm saying about involving foreign nations, army and intelligence people in our country. Air, border, and maritime security. Well, that's right. We can't even watch our own borders, but we can bail out everybody, right? But anyway, critical infrastructure protection, public and private, alert notification. For more information, I'm going to tell you, hey, why don't you call FEMA? The guys who did such a good job. I'll give you the number, 202-646-4600. Find out about NLE 09. Now here's my moment of zen. My 9/11 moment of zen. I said, gee, they had war games on 9/11? That's why this, did things happen when they have war games? Show them the war games.
Rage Deskin?
Yes, ma'am, Sergeant Rorta.
Yes.
I'm just letting you know for information we're having an exercise, SF exercise. We're having a comm out.
Okay.
Guys.
Happy, thanks.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Between September 2000 and June 2001, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, would scramble fighter jets to intercept errant aircraft 67 times. Interceptions are routine and usually occur within 10 minutes of a sign of trouble, such as permanently losing radio contact and transponder signal or flying off course. On the morning of September 11th, according to official accounts, 4 commercial airliners would be off course and out of communication, and not one of them would be intercepted.
How is it that on 4 separate occasions on one day that $1 trillion military and intelligence infrastructure could fail?
Never did in anybody's thought process about how to protect America did we ever think that the evildoers would fly not 1, but 4 commercial aircraft into precious U.S. targets. Never.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that these people would take an airplane and slam it into the World Trade Center, take another one and slam it into the Pentagon.
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
But that turns out not to be true. U.S. military planners did envision and practice those very scenarios. As reported by USA Today, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, conducted exercises with fighter jets, simulating hijacked planes flown into the World Trade Center in the 2 years before the attacks. Pentagon planners also envisioned the attack on the Pentagon 5 months before it happened. According to this April 2001 Pentagon email, Air Force officials wanted a war game, having a terrorist group hijack a commercial airline and fly it into the Pentagon. The idea was to check response times to launch fighter jets, but according to the Pentagon email, the plan was ultimately rejected by senior Pentagon officials as too unrealistic. Still to come are questions, big questions, about NORAD's response on the day of the attack. why, despite all the exercises and the planning, Peter, jet fighters were not in place anywhere near New York or Washington.
Quite an amazing story. Many thanks, Brian. Brian Ross.
One drill, called Amalgam Virgo, was conducted on June 1st and 2nd, 2001, and simulated successful terrorist attacks. Its purpose was to focus on unconventional threats, including an airborne hijacking. One plan would simulate the hijacking of a commercial airliner, which would be crashed into the Capitol. The second part of the exercise, which was planned but not executed before 9/11, involved 2 planes with actual pilots on the flight deck. FBI agents would hijack the planes and divert them to secure locations.